Mautwe.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Greetings to the President and Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, members of Parliament, and the people of South Africa. Speaker, allow us once more to send our heartfelt condolences to the Malema family who lay to rest their mother, sister, aunt, friend, and grandmother. We also want to thank all those who sent messages of condolences and those who came to lay fighter Martha Mutlanalo Malema to rest, who died a member of EFF in good standing. Speaker, this is yet another wasted opportunity. Another opportunity to rather spend the DA and ANC budget. Another year in which we allow a budget that will not assist us as a country to create jobs, to hire doctors, to build schools, to eradicate pit toilets, and to deliver water to our people. Speaker, to support this budget is to support the continuation of poverty and suffering of our people. Speaker, to support this budget is to support an instruction from the IMF, because this is a budget instructed by the IMF, which released a report a few days before the minister tabled this budget, knowing that it is an election year and the minister may be under pressure to say that South Africa must continue with joblessness, high interest rates, and austerity budget. We are told, Minister, that you did not want this budget in an election year, but that you had to be reported to the IMF for them to whip you into line. But we know, Minister, that since the struggle for you was moving between meaningless speeches without conviction and beer halls, it must have been easy. Speaker, within this budget, we will not eradicate pit toilets in Fama Primary School, Elinyaweni Primary School, and Yamala Primary School, amongst many other schools in the Eastern Cape, where the children of the poor face life-threatening danger every day. With this budget, we will not hire more teachers in our schools, despite the fact that one teacher must attend to an average of 30 children in a class, while our own children go to private schools. There are no proper roads in the rural areas, Speaker. When children have to go to school and it's raining, they are unable to attend classes. Speaker, with this budget, we will not hire more doctors in our public health facilities, even though President Ramaphosa agrees with the EFF that our clinics must operate 24 hours. There is no intention in this budget to hire more teachers and doctors. Unemployed doctors will continue to go to the Premier's office in the Eastern Cape. Speaker, this budget will not increase SASSA grants for elderly people, foster care people, people who are living with disability, and children. This budget will not change the lives of our people. With this budget, we will not expand the spaces we need in institutions of higher learning to cater for more than 615,000 matriculants when we only have 230,000 spaces in universities for the first-time entrances. Speaker, this is a crisis the minister completely ignored in his budget speech. How are you going to re-industrialize the country when you cannot invest in post-matric education, research and development, and training? With this budget, we will not solve the problem of the water crisis and shortages in many communities that do not have dependable and drinkable water. Speaker, it is the EFF that fought for the completion of the water project in Guyana. But jiggy, the people of Midrand who pay for rates and services do not have water that they paid for. This budget will not allow us to create more jobs, despite the unemployment crisis facing our young people. Speaker, we will not fix our roads and fill potholes in our metros and many of our cities and towns. We will not be able to build more houses for our people, many of whom have waited for many years for this government to give them houses. We will not be able to fix many of the municipal dilapidated buildings that are hijacked by criminal syndicates. Speaker, we will not be able to refurbish many municipal swimming pools, recreational facilities for our children to keep busy and stay away from drug abuse. We will not be able to hire more police officers to fight crime, even when it is clear that organized crime has deeply infiltrated the South African Police Service and criminals are now controlling men and women in blue through bribes. With this fiscal framework, we will not be able to reindustrialize our economy, all the factories that are closing, the jobs that are being lost, and the many communities that will be left as ghost towns will continue. The Eastern Cape already records the highest unemployment rate, with the closure of Goodyear in Kabeja, the downsizing of Mercedes-Benz in East London, and the closure of many downstream businesses. The situation is going to get worse. As the EFF, we've made substantive proposals on the amendment of the equitable share to give municipalities more money to improve service delivery, to expand the fiscal framework to re-industrialize South Africa, to build state capacity and in-source use surplus funds in pensions, EFF and skills funds, and capacitate SARS. But all these were rejected, not because they lacked merit, but because the ANC is prioritizing a DA budget. Speaker, therefore, as the EFF, we call on all young people to register to vote for the EFF, to remove these criminals and put a government that will deliver free education and create jobs for our people. Young people, go out in your numbers, register to vote. It takes only 2 minutes for you to be a registered voter and vote for the EFF in the upcoming local government elections. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Hadi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The IFP acknowledges the difficult fiscal environment within which this framework has been crafted, including constrained economic growth, rising debt levels, and increasing demands on the public purse. We have consistently advocated for a people-centered fiscal framework, one that places the lived realities of ordinary South Africans at the center of policy choices. However, we believe that more efforts can be made to prioritize inclusive growth, support small businesses, and drive labor-absorbing sectors of the economy. Fiscal policy must be a tool for transformation, not just a mechanism for balancing the books. We recognize the efforts made to strike a balance between fiscal consolidation and the need to protect vulnerable households. We further note that although fiscal consolidation is necessary, the current approach leans heavily on expenditure restraint without sufficient interventions to stimulate economic activity. Without meaningful investment in infrastructure, local economic development, and industrialization, the Republic risks being trapped in a cycle of low growth and declining revenue. We also wish to emphasize that a people-centered fiscal framework must prioritize dignity. This includes ensuring that social wage intervention, basic services, and targeted support programs are adequately funded and effectively delivered. We expect the government to align fiscal choices with the constitutional mandate to improve the quality of life for all its citizens. With this being said, we welcome the decision to withdraw the proposed 20 billion tax increase, as well as the provision of inflationary relief to taxpayers. These measures will go some way in easing the financial burden on South Africans who are already under significant economic pressure. At the same time, we remain concerned that the current growth projections are not sufficient to address the Republic's high levels of unemployment and inequality. Greater emphasis must be placed on stimulating inclusive economic growth, supporting small businesses, and accelerating infrastructure development to unlock job creation. We also note with concern the continued rise in public debt and debt service costs, which limit the state's ability to invest in critical social and economic priorities. This underscores the importance of improving spending efficiency, strengthening accountability, and eliminating waste across all spheres of government. Greater urgency is required to unlock economic potential, restore investor confidence, and build a capable state that delivers effectively. Despite these concerns, we believe that the framework provides a necessary foundation for fiscal stability and continuity. It reflects a pragmatic approach under challenging circumstances. The IFP supports the adoption of the 2026 fiscal framework and revenue proposals, while calling for sustained efforts to build a more growth-oriented, efficient, and people-centered fiscal path going forward. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Souls.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Greetings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Moinkia ahuniki. To the Honorable Minister from Tanzania, we welcome you. My name is Toike from the Ninka House of the Komani San tribe. The Hadza and the Sandawe people of northern Tanzania has genetic and linguistic links to us as the Busman. So we are blood. Thanks for visiting our home legally. Madam Speaker, fellow South Africans, we stand today at a significant crossroads. The 2026
Speaker.
fiscal framework presented
Order,
before
honorable
this
member.
House.
Honorable Souls, can you take your seat? There's a point of order.
Speaker, but Honorable Souls can't be introducing himself to Tanzanian comrades because his organization is saying Mabahambe, Africans from South Africa.
Honorable member, that is not the point of order. Honorable Souls, can you please proceed?
Honorable Speaker, I did say welcome home legally. And we maintain, if you are illegal in the country, abahambe. As a partner, the 2026 fiscal framework presented before this House is not merely a collection of numbers. It is a blueprint for a nation that has decided to choose stability over chaos. As a partner in this government of national unity, we support this framework because it signals a turning point in how we manage our collective purse. For the first time in 16 years, we have seen a sovereign credit rating upgrade, a clear sign that the world is beginning to believe in South Africa again. This is a reason for South Africans to feel hopeful today. This budget recognizes that your pockets have been squeezed by inflation. For the first time in 2 years, the government is providing full inflationary relief by adjusting personal income tax brackets and medical tax credits. This is real money back into the hands of working families. Furthermore, we are moving from words to action on infrastructure. We have committed 1.7 trillion as the GNU over the medium term to build the roads, rail, and water systems our economy desperately needs. We see hope in the fact that Eskom has posted its first profit in nearly a decade. This is the fruit of disciplined reforms that prioritizes and making our state entities work for the people, not against them. By stabilizing our debt and growing our primary surplus, we are ensuring that future generations are not born into a mountain of debt they can never climb. We are choosing a path that lowers borrowing costs, which eventually means more money for clinics, schools, and safety. In conclusion, as proud GNU partners, whilst we support fiscal discipline, we must never let fiscal consolidation become a code word for stagnation. To the people of South Africa, the GNU is working. We are debating, we are disagreeing, but ultimately we are delivering a framework that projects your savings,
He's done.
rewards your hard work, and stabilizes your future. Believe in the GNU. We support die pad of land. Jou pad is salut, jou pad is kort. Gaan net aan.
Order. Honorable Vessels. Order, honorable members.
Speaker,
please.
Speaker.
Order, honorable members.
Speaker, you see our visitors are
Order.
leaving now because
Order,
of this
honorable
mabahambe
members.
nonsense.
Thank you, honorable member Mkalipi. You have got your TG next to you who has raised her hand, so you didn't even wait. Thank you, honorable vessels.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Speaker, when the fiscal framework was presented to this House, it created a cautiously optimistic outlook. Structural reforms are starting to yield positive results, and the focus is placed on infrastructure investment, fiscal consolidation, and the protection of taxpayers. This creates an environment where the damage can be restored and where there can be built, or where we can build a better future. But since then, the global outlook significantly changed. The military offensive against Iran has the potential to disrupt these optimistic projections and outlook. Inflation will most definitely be pushed above the projected 3.4%, as fuel and fertilizer prices will significantly increase. Higher fuel and fertilizer prices will mean higher food prices. Couple this with the increases ill-conceived, NERSA electricity increases, and the poor handling of the foot and mouth disease, and we are facing a perfect storm. What are also threatening the positive fiscal framework and projections are disastrous municipalities, which waste the money allocated to them, which are doing harm, and who are not contributing to a conducive investment environment. Also, the ongoing waste of the scarce funds in the fiscus, for example, the 172 million rand that was spent on the Armed Forces Day, whilst the Defence Force does not have money to even operate. This draws a red line through structural reforms and the positive outlook. Speaker, korrupsie vind steeds plaas. Korrupsie raak buite beheer. Elke tender wat toegeken word, is 'n moontlike korrupte projek en 'n moontlike korrupsie wat die uitvloei van geld net erger maak. Ons kan nie herstel en bou terwyl korrupsie hoogtyd vier nie. Amptenarye, veral in senior bestuursposte, is nie daar om die mense te dien nie. Daar's 'n totale skoonmaak nodig van die wat nie wil dien nie en die wat net wil vreet. Want tans het ons senior lede wat net daarop uit is om te vreet en wat nie daarop uit is om die mense van Suid-Afrika te dien met verantwoordelikheid nie. Daarom word soveel geld gesteel. The global economic outlook isn't within this government's control. It's not within this house's control. What is within our control is to clean house, to clean municipalities, to get them functioning, to clean departments, to stop wasteful expenditure, to stop expenditure on luxuries whilst people are suffering. We must continue protecting the taxpayer, and we must do much more to protect South Africans from the inevitable increase of cost of living. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Beasley.
Honourable Speaker, the fiscal framework before us contains important positives and lays a credible foundation for the economic growth South Africa so desperately needs to tackle unemployment, poverty, inequality, and crime. But it is becoming increasingly clear that the government of national unity, with its bloated executive of 70 ministers and deputy ministers, is incapable of translating the solid foundation into meaningful growth. There are two key positives in this budget to which Action SA has made a decisive contribution. Firstly, the scrapping of 20 billion in proposed tax increases. South Africans are already overburdened, and further tax hikes would have deepened the daily hardship faced by millions. The removal is a direct result of improved performance by SARS. From the outset, Action SA has led the call in Parliament for SARS to be properly resourced after years of deliberately underfunding, which created an estimated 800 billion tax gap. The turnaround we are now seeing is a clear vindication of that position and a victory for every compliant taxpayer and for every South African. However, SARS remains underfunded. If we are serious about fiscal sustainability, this must be urgently addressed. As Action SA, we extend our appreciation to Commissioner Kieswetter for his years of service. Secondly, the illicit economy has finally been placed firmly on the national agenda and finds expression in this budget. For the first time in 15 years, excise duties have been limited to inflation. Above inflation increases in the absence of enforcement only widens the gap between legal and illicit goods, strengthening criminal syndicates while punishing compliant businesses. Action SA has consistently warned against a self-defeating approach and will continue to push for a coordinated, properly funded strategy to dismantle the illicit economy. Honourable Speaker, while the framework is solid, the problem lies squarely with the executive tasked with implementing it. A cabinet of 75 members is not governance. It is excess, it is inefficient, it is costly, and it dilutes accountability. At the same time, we are witnessing the normalization of economic failure. Growth of 1% is treated as an achievement when sub-Saharan Africa is growing at close to 4%. Over 100 countries worldwide exceed 3%, and more than 60 countries surpass 4%. Yet here, GN ministers clap like seals over 1% growth. It is misplaced and deeply concerning. More troubling still is a capability deficit within the executive. Too many ministers and deputies lack the competence and experience required to manage critical portfolios. The uncomfortable truth is that many would struggle to find employment outside of politics, yet they are entrusted with driving South Africa's economic future. And when resources are constrained, government continues to make questionable spending choices. It is indefensible that it's more spent on VIP protection, including the bloated cabinet, than on the Hawks, the very unit mandated to combat organised crime. This speaks to a set of priorities that is fundamentally misaligned with the needs of our people. The result is predictable. Despite a credible fiscal foundation, economic growth under the GNU will remain constrained and underwhelming. In conclusion, Honourable Speaker, Action SA will support this fiscal framework. We do so as a pragmatic and constructive opposition committed to advancing policies that move South African forward. But let us be clear, without a capable, disciplined and accountable executive, even the best fiscal framework will fail to deliver the growth that our people do so desperately need. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Thring.
Honourable Speaker, the ACDP notes that while South Africa's public finances are improving, disciplined fiscal management is essential to achieve faster economic growth and meaningful job creation. While fiscal consolidation is beginning to show promise, with a rising primary budget surplus and public debt expected to stabilize at 77.9% of GDP, this remains too high, and debt servicing costs continue to crowd out critical social spending and crime prevention. Acknowledging that economic growth projections remain weak at 1.4% for 2026-27 years and averaging at 1.8% over the medium term, the ACDP agrees that growth of between 3 to 5% is a necessity to effectively address unemployment and poverty. Global exogenous developments, particularly the Iran war and rising oil prices, further threaten these projections by increasing economic pressures and complicating debt stabilization efforts. South Africa's foreign policy stance has strained relations with key trade partners such as the United States and the European Union, largely due to our alignment with Russia, China, and Iran. These tensions, including tariffs and diplomatic disputes, risk undermining trade agreements, slowing economic growth, and potentially isolating the country internationally. To stabilize debt over the long term, the ACGP calls for reducing it to approximately 60% of GDP, while maintaining a strong fiscal anchor, such as growing the primary surplus. Furthermore, structural reforms in energy, water, transport, and visa systems are essential to unlock higher growth alongside urgent improvements in local government service delivery. The ACDP posits that private investment is a key driver of growth but remains subdued due to crime, policy uncertainty, and political instability. Businesses are holding some 1.8 trillion in cash reserves, and unlocking this capital depends on creating a safe, stable environment supported by reliable infrastructure. The ACDP further notes that on revenue side, higher commodity prices and improved tax collection have created a windfall, allowing for tax relief without increasing major tax rates. We must continue to build on these successes. As kingdom builders, the ACDP calls for policy certainty, strengthened law enforcement, reduced wasteful expenditure, and greater accountability to rebuild trust, attract greater investment, and ensure that taxpayers receive value for money. I thank you.
Thank you. UDM. UDM. Rise Mzansi.
Nakhensa mthama xitulu ngeni khensa na mthama xitulu wa komiti Maswanganyi Khensi. Honorable Speaker, Rise Mzansi will support the passing of the fiscal framework. We do so because we acknowledge the progress that is being made. The structural reforms undertaken in recent years are beginning to bear fruits. We are not yet where we want to be, but we are certainly far from where we once were. That progress must be recognized, consolidated, and accelerated. Today, I want to focus on 3 issues that I believe every minister, every department, and every public servant should obsess over on a daily basis. That is economic growth, employment, and reducing the debt service costs. Firstly, it's growth. South Africa's economic growth remains weak and insufficient. This is the central constraint on our national progress. Every department, regardless of its mandate, must continuously ask, how do our actions contribute to economic growth? Growth is not the responsibility of one ministry. It is a whole of government imperative. If we obsess enough about growth, we can return to the levels achieved between 2000 and 2008, when the economy grew at an average above 4%. That is the benchmark we must aim for. Secondly, it's employment. We must create an environment that's conducive to investment and job creation. Businesses must see South Africa as a predictable, efficient, and a competitive place to invest. But beyond policy, this is about execution. The basics matter. If every public servant could simply do what they are employed to do diligently for 40 hours a week, a capable state is a foundation for a job-creating economy. Thirdly, the debt service cost. We must reduce this cost both in nominal terms and as a share of revenue. Whilst there's a celebration in terms of the reduction as a share of revenue, in nominal terms, the debt service cost continues to rise. This undermines our ability to invest in the future and properly capacitate the security cluster, particularly the police and the South African National Defence Force. A state burdened by debt cannot secure its people nor unlock its potential. If we are relentless, truly relentless about these 3 priorities, we will reduce poverty and inequality, and we will place South Africa firmly on the path to becoming a safe, prosperous, equal and united country in one generation. It can be done, and we must do it. Nakenza Mchomashtul.
Nakenza. Honorable Maimane.
Speaker, a famous boxer once said, Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until you are punched in the face. On the 27th of February, we had a good plan, Minister. Inflation was low, which is correct. Interest rate cuts were on the horizon. We tabled fiscal anchors, which are absolutely crucial. It was clear that debt to GDP would stabilize and peak. Except today is the 24th of March. We are being punched in the face. Here are some basic facts. The reality is fuel will rise by 4 rand in the next while. Honorable Minister of Electricity, fuel prices are going to increase the cost of energy in the next while. That's a fact. Citizens are recognizing that ultimately our trade deficit is going to be impacted. It's now sitting at negative 0.9. The fact is the war is going to exacerbate the cost of living for too many citizens. The fuel levy is only set up to increase by 104 billion rands, which is 4% of the budget, but the increases themselves are material for citizens. So, Minister of Finance, I guess the question I have to ask you, as I heard people march about not being bullied, isn't a fuel levy another form of bullying people? Can we not defer its own implementation? Because ultimately we can limit the impact it has on citizens and cushion them at a time such as this one. Fellow South Africans, the truth is we face a second crisis, which is the affordability crisis. Too many people are finding out that at the end of the money, there's still too much month left. So, I want to, Minister, argue that our job as this House, if we're going to cushion the people, is to accelerate the cuts that we need. And I would suggest that we cut agencies that are not contributing. I would suggest, as the President has spoken, that SETAs need to be reformed. There are many, you talk about ghost workers, but the truest ghost workers are in agencies that don't deliver anything. Cut those, let's limit the expenditure that goes there and free up people. We do need a growth plan, and ultimately our GDP growth needs to improve. We're not going to tax ourselves to prosperity. We're going to grow ourselves to prosperity. So as I close, honorable members, I would suggest in support of this that we eliminate growth barriers, we invest in infrastructure, we educate our young people, we eliminate corruption, and not bully citizens of this country.
Thank you,
Yeah, level.
honorable
Thank
member.
you.
ATM,
Kgawanele Mike Tyson.
order. You are not allowed to just speak on a mic without being recognized. I saw you, I won't mention your name. ATM, Honorable L.S. Makubele.
Honorable Speaker and honorable members, I make my contribution in this debate on behalf of the African National Congress and in support of the 2026 framework, fiscal framework, and the revenue proposals, and the report on the Standing Committee on Finance. Today's debate is not only about statistics. It is about the urgent need to address everyday challenges faced by our people. The ANC has placed the acceleration of economic growth and job creation high on its agenda. It is for this reason that the manifesto of the ANC prioritizes the number one, which is our jobs plan. Every rand channeled through this fiscal framework must become a weapon of transformation. It must dismantle old patterns of exclusion and uplift new centers of power. This will be done by backing local suppliers, township and rural SMMEs, worker-owned enterprises, and where possible, youth-owned firms and women-owned firms. Honorable members, the true test of this fiscal framework and the revenue proposals will be the scale of transformation that will be unleashed. This will be how many decent and lasting jobs do we create and sustain? How many local and powerful firms do we establish and support? And how many proudly local content do we insist on using? The ANC-led GNU is forging ahead, and it's steering a bold and capable state that will ensure that transformation is at the center of government programs. We are going to ensure that we design bankable and transformative projects. We are going to sweep aside stifling regulatory delays, and we are going to ensure that public resources are spent with efficiencies and enforce and accountability. We support and welcome the 1 trillion allocation for the infrastructure over the medium term. This is a bold and economic turning point. Honorable members, infrastructure has the biggest and highest multiplier effect, creating work opportunities and supporting SMMEs. The priority of the government is to lower the cost of living, and it is evident in its measures to support the commuter rail transport by allocating over 5.7 billion to PRASA. Because when our transport infrastructure is transformed, we do not only workers get
Order, Honorable Makubela, if you can take your seat. Honorable member, what's the point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. It's not a point of order. I wanted to find out if the member is willing to take a question.
Honorable Makubela, are you willing to take a question?
Don't speak for her.
Honorable member, I'm not prepared to take a question.
Order, honorable members. Honorable Paulson, be in order. You had asked a question whether the member is willing to answer a question, and she said no. No, it doesn't matter whether she does or she doesn't know. I don't think we need to change the rules. If a member said I'm not willing, let's allow her.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And when ports are unleashed, our exports grow and the nation rises and new industries are reborn. When electricity flows without interruption.
Honorable members, Honorable Paulson, can we please make sure that we do not have a dialogue with the speaker? Interjection, yes, is allowed, but please let's allow members not to be drowned to present their speeches. Honorable member can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And when electricity flows without interruptions, business do not just survive. They innovate, they expand, and we rewrite the future. When the water supply is fully functional, communities do not live in dignity. They stand empowered, they are healthy, and they are unshakable. The ANC-led government is clear on this one. We are not here to maintain an economy that enriches a privileged few. We are here to ignite an economy that liberates and empowers many. True development is not measured by what we build, but who gets to participate and who gets new opportunities that are sustained. If township businesses are locked, if young people remain unemployed and underemployed, then we have not transformed the economy. We have simply rebuilt the same old systems of exclusion. We also recognize that government cannot fund everything alone. That is why we champion bold measures to unlock direct investment. Private investment must come on board to serve a public purpose. Honorable members, let us speak about the procurement because it is where transformation must be real, it must be tangible, and it must be felt. We must use procurement as a powerful weapon to build our economy, to support domestic industries, and to expand local manufacturing. The ANC-led government will ensure that transformation is real and transformation is felt on the ground. And this fiscal framework must ensure that our people get to be active participants in the economy that will be growing on their behalf. Honorable members, our support for this fiscal framework is a support that empowers government to ensure that money trickles down to our local municipalities, money trickles down to manufacturing hubs, money trickles down and empowers localities in the length and the breadth of our country. We thank you.
Honorable Ismail Musa.
Greetings and peace be upon this honorable house and our beloved nation. Al-Jamaa supports this report. This report is a matter of national urgency and responsibility. While we acknowledge the difficult economic climate facing our country, marked by slow growth, high unemployment, and rising cost of living for millions of South Africans, it is a daily struggle to afford food, electricity, transport, and basic dignity. Yet this framework continues to place pressure on ordinary citizens while offering limited relief to the most vulnerable. The over-reliance on indirect taxation and rising living costs disproportionately impacts the poor and working class. At a time when households are already stretched, we must be cautious not to balance the books on the backs of the people. Al-Jamaa recognizes the need for fiscal discipline. Discipline should not come at the expense of development. We cannot cut our way to growth. Strategic investment in infrastructure, local economic development, and job creation must remain central to our fiscal approach. Al-Jamaa is particularly concerned about whether sufficient resources are being directed toward municipalities and community-level development. Service delivery failures, aging infrastructure, and growing informal settlements require urgent and targeted financial support. A credible fiscal framework must be felt where people live at grassroots levels, in communities. Al-Jamaa further calls for stronger measures to combat wasteful and irregular expenditure. Every rand lost to corruption is a rand stolen from the poor. Accountability must be non-negotiable. This fiscal framework must do more to advance economic justice, reduce inequality, and restore hope. It must also prioritize people over numbers and dignity over austerity. Let us ensure that this framework lays a foundation of sustainable, equitable development. Al-Jamaa stands for people-centered economy, one that uplifts communities, supports the vulnerable, and most of all, builds a sustainable future. Viva to one of the most trustworthy parties in Parliament. Vote for Al-Jamaa's registration. Viva the leader of Al-Jamaa, Hanif Hendricks, the leader of Al-Jamaa Party, who stands for the vulnerable and the elderly. I thank you so much. Malipau!
Thank you, Honorable Member. NCC. Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you, leadership. Thank you, Speaker. Photo, Africa. I rise on behalf of the United African Transformation to oppose this report. This report is not a plan for growth, it's a blueprint for austerity, inequality, and state retreat. At its core, it enforces real cut to public spending. Critical sectors such as health, social development, and local government face declining resources in real terms. This is happening while our population grows and the service delivery collapses. What does it mean in practice? It means fewer teachers, fewer healthcare workers, and falling municipalities. It means the state is withdrawing from the people who need it most. Honorable members, Ma-Afrika, we are told that this is necessary for fiscal discipline, but the truth is different. This framework prioritizes debt service cost over human development. We are cutting essential services to pay creditors. Furthermore, the proposal to narrow the inflation target is misguided. It risks keeping interest rates high, increasing the cost of living, and discouraging investment in job-creating sectors like manufacturing. There is no clear evidence that this will lead to growth. We must also question the so-called structural reforms. Despite these efforts, unemployment remains high, investment is weak, and growth projections are insufficient. Even a 2% growth rate will not address this poverty and inequality. This is not transformation, it's a stagnation. The real problem here is ideological. This framework assumed to reducing the role of the state will somehow produce growth. But our reality demands opposite. A capable developmental state that invests in people, infrastructure, and industry. There is an alternative, Africa. We must close these massive losses from tax evasion and illicit financial flows. We must ensure that wealthy pay their fair share. We must invest in public services and expand social protection. There are practical steps towards inclusive growth. In conclusion, this fiscal framework asks us to choose austerity over development, market over the people, and stagnation over transformation. The United African Transformation rejects this choice. We are therefore opposing this report.
Honorable Dr. J. Becker.
Madam Speaker, my call on the Minister of Finance before the tabling of this fiscal framework was to make budgets boring again. And I'm happy to say, Minister, that you've largely done so. This framework is not only boring, it's quietly competent. It includes no VAT increases, and tax brackets are far less creepy. We are voting for a framework that increases tax thresholds, some of which have been frozen under the ANC for decades. And we're voting for a fiscal framework that focuses on debt stabilization. These are noble goals. And when the framework is delivered in February, Minister, you deserve the congratulations you received. But we're no longer in February. March has changed the world. Hormuz flows off of the tongue almost as easily as Hermanus. Petrol prices will carve holes into family budgets. Bond yields are threatening to blow up our debt stabilization path. And we've gone from hoping interest rates will be cut this year to worrying about rate rises. In the short time that we've had to pass this fiscal framework, its underlying assumptions have been radically altered. You might say that the mild optimism we had in February is leaking like water in a city of Johannesburg pipe. And so I come to this house not to celebrate this fiscal framework, but to bury an old hatchet and pass it. Also to deliver a warning. Beware of the Ides of next March, for next year's budget may not be nearly as boring. Global events threaten our economy and our households, and we are not ready. Decades of deficits and debt have left us with little fiscal room to respond. We should have used the time since the last global shock to radically reform. Instead, like a metro rail train, we've moved too slowly. We've sent the wrong signals. And we've spent as much time getting looted as we have spent fixing things. And so I fear we've left this all very late. What kind of a hole is this global conflict driving into this fiscal framework, Honourable Minister? Whatever the size might be, I need to issue an early warning. Unlike a pothole in an ANC municipality, you cannot expect taxpayers to fill this hole. We have 11 months to fundamentally shift expenditure. Do not tell us next year that CETAs can't be drastically reformed or cut overnight. You have almost a year's notice. Do not tell us that spending reviews will take more time. This is the more time part. National Treasury and the Presidency need to act now. It cannot allow itself to be a looting enabler like an Action SA mayor. Don't tell us next year that you still haven't figured out how to extend the ghost worker audit beyond national and provincial departments to local governments and state entities. Lack of time is not a valid excuse. For we know that lack of time is often a lie. It's a lack of political will that's the problem. Madam Speaker, I hope this speech does not age well. I hope that next year's budget does not include revenue shortfalls. But I fear that even if I'm wrong about next year, I'll be wrong about timing, but not the event itself. Honourable Minister, this warning might be uncomfortable. But unlike the SACP's grievances, the ANC simply cannot ignore this. We are one global downturn away from moving from boring budgets to extremely difficult budgets. We can wait and face the music later. We can prepare now before it's too late.
Thank you, Honourable Squati.
Our people are wasting Parliament's time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order, Honourable Paulson. Now you would want me to name you and finally ask you to leave. Yes, don't create a dialogue. Let's allow speakers to present. Honourable Squati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, once again. As a nation, we are compelled to advance the realization of the National Development Plan, the Africa Agenda 2063, and the Sustainable Development Goals. Our 30th anniversary of the Constitution is an important milestone in our constitutional democracy. As President Ramaphosa stated in the Human Rights Address, I quote, "Our task is to ensure that the rights and freedoms contained in the Constitution are not only protected in law, but experiences in the daily lives of all South Africans," close quote. The 2026 Fiscal Framework and Revenue Proposal seeks to improve the people's daily lives. And it continues with the fiscal strategy of the sixth administration to take measures to stabilize our debt position and arrest the crowding out of public investment due to high debt servicing costs. Today, the foundation laid in the sixth administration is bearing fruit. As government, we have achieved a second primary budget surplus, and debt to GDP has peaked in the previous financial year. The fiscal debt to GDP has peaked in the previous financial year, as many has alluded to. The fiscal projects a decline in debt service cost, and we welcome the progress made. The revenue collection is higher than the 2025 budget estimation by 28.7 billion, while the tax to GDP ratio has increased to 25.9 in 2025-26 from 25.1% in 24-25. It's progress as much as it's marginal. This demonstrates that we don't need a binding fiscal rule, but a debt stabilization strategy and an agile, balanced fiscal framework recognizing the volatility in the global economy. The country was on the grey list on the Financial Act Task Force, and today we have been removed from it, and we continue to welcome that. Today, the country has been removed from the grey list, and our economy's risk premium has improved, lowering the interest rates. The economy is expected to grow from 1.3% in 2025 to 1.6% in the current financial year, and most importantly, real economic growth is expected to reach 2% in 2028. These are not just numbers, but a signal of an upward trajectory which requires consistent public and private partnership investments. And that's to say, we cannot declare growth just by declaration. We have got to take concrete action, and this is what is happening. In the sixth administration, during a post-COVID-19, the government implemented an economic reconstruction and recovery plan to accelerate measures to catalyze economic growth through Operation Vulindlela, which reforms network industries and target infrastructure. Infrastructure investment of over 1 trillion supporting energy, constituting 20%, water 17%, and transport will be the backbone of the economic growth, and we believe that is catalyst, and it will be in a better position to grow the economy. Operation Vulindlela, again, has resulted in significant contribution of the renewable energy, private players, elevating pressure from our generation plants, while ensuring reliable service provision, and we further adopted the ESCOM debt relief, which has effectively stabilized ESCOM, and today ESCOM is in a growth trajectory as a profitable entity and is currently planning to expand its generation capacity through investments in renewable energy and focusing on gas, nuclear, and outlined in the new integrated resource plan, and we do welcome that. Control in the power station and creating a culture of accountability and outcome-based performance of workers and contractors is important. As we draw lessons from the ESCOM improvements and support major state entities such as DNL, Transnet, the Post Office, and support the growth of SAA. Capitaling SOEs is positive impetus to increase the public investment and economic growth. We welcome the 1.8 billion for a credit guarantee vehicle to support the capitalization of SOEs. All resource allocations for public entities should be linked to increased performance and productivity, and as well as accountability. Public entities are a major component of our economy, and their upward performance is non-negotiable. All members, the state-owned entities have moved to a positive trajectory from a negative return of equity of 15.6% in 2023-24 to a positive 3.7% in 24-25. This is a major victory of our efforts to build a developmental state. We must shun corruption and mismanagement in SOEs and ensure all major contracts have effective and strict contract management capabilities. All members, this growth trajectory has a missing piece, which is the local government.
Order, Honorable Scott, if you can take your seat. Honorable Kalipi, what's the point of order?
Speaker, on this paper of speakers, there's no allocation of minutes for this member. So he's just speaking for endless things that does not even make sense. Irrelevant.
Honorable
Speaker, can you be
Kalipi.
told how many minutes he's going to speak?
Honorable Mkalipi, that's not a point of order. The speaker has got the minutes of the speaker. It's 10 minutes, just be patient. It may be long, you just have to listen. Honorable Squati, you can proceed.
Mkalipi, you are charmed. Squat is so charming.
Order, honorable members.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, can you please not use the mic without being pointed at?
You are too old to say that.
Order, honorable members. Honorable Nhlangwini, don't do what I've just said. It's out of order. Can we just allow the House to proceed? Honorable members, it depends on how much you want to sit in the House, because the points of order are not going to be helpful to you. Honorable Squati, can you please proceed?
The ANC in its key tasks in fixing local government requires the National Treasury to support municipalities to ensure that budgeting allocates sufficient funds for infrastructure maintenance. It's possible we must split grants to a dedicated maintenance grant to support municipalities and one for infrastructure development. We must develop adequately fund measures to ensure municipalities also develop internal capabilities to maintain infrastructure. Madam Speaker, the ANC has long committed to restoring the dignity of the dispossessed through supporting land distribution programs, 3.4 billion to support land acquisition of 144,000 hectares and 7 billion allocated to support 180 land reform beneficiaries through the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program has been allocated, and we welcome that. We support the National Treasury's approach of moving from oversight to active structural interventions. National and provincial departments has an obligation to ensure outcomes are achieved. After all, the organs of the state are bound by the aspirations of the people and the imperative of the Constitution and protect and advance the human rights of all South Africans, forward ever, backward never. I thank you.
Thank you. Order, Minister of Finance.
Honorable Speaker, I must join fellow honorable members in welcoming and greeting our colleagues from the United Republic of Tanzania. Honorable Maiman,
Honorable Minister, if you can take your seat, please. Honorable Reddy, what's the point of order?
Please, Honorable Speaker, my very favorite minister is on the floor. We are sitting here and being abused by something hanging out of his pants. Can you please ensure that that's put away? It's actually looking quite
I don't hear
insulting
you.
to us. He has something hanging out of his pants there, and we're not sure what it is. If you could please put that back inside and zip it up. Thank you.
I think the minister has heard what you are saying, and he will attend to it. Order. Honorable members, you are actually live on TV. What is it? And society is looking at you.
Oh! It's very short, Speaker. Very short.
Reddy, I am going to ask.
Honorable Reddy has a Candy Crush.
I'm going to ask the leader of your party in Parliament to take you back where you were, because you are troublesome in the front. Order, honorable members. Honorable Nhlangwini, what's the point of order?
Thank you, Speaker. No, Speaker, I just wanted to hear a check from Honorable Reddy. What was his eye doing there?
Well, honorable members, There is not a point of order. You can consult Honorable Reddy outside. Order. Honorable Minister, just focus on your speech now so that we can conclude this debate.
Honorable Maimane said I have been punched. It's not the first time. In 2022...
Honorable Speaker.
Order.
I apologize. I don't want to disrupt the minister. I said South Africans are being punched, not he has been punched.
Thank you for the correction.
Thank you for the correction. But the issue is the same. In 2022, we tabled the budget on the 22nd, 23rd of February. Midnight on the 29th of February, Russia attacked Ukraine. We were punched as South Africans. Fuel prices rose. A similar exercise has happened. We tabled the budget on the 25th. And on the 28th, the Americans and Israel attacked Iran. What is going to be required is an informed response, not short-term responses. Reflect on how other countries have responded to this geopolitical situation. We are on track, as a colleague, my comrade Sport says, on our developmental goals. We will be making clear that moving forward, we are going to be focused on the socio-economic rights as enshrined in our Constitution. Growth is a function of investment and other things. But investment operates in an environment which is conducive to investment. This government has done everything to create an environment which is conducive to growth. What is necessary now is us to see that ticking. The budget has been doing that. We have been able also, as everybody has reflected, to get an upgrade, to remove it from grey listing. We're now in an environment which is conducive for investment. On the tax side, we've been able to provide tax relief to our citizens. What is hardly mentioned is the impact we have done on tax relief for small and medium enterprise, which is also conducive to growth. In local government, we've presented a number of reforms on local government which are taking place, whether it's in the form of grants, whether it's in the form of trading services in metros. All of those are changes that are taking place, are contained in that budget. The President, in his State of the Nation address, informed this House that he's setting up a committee to deal with the water challenge. And that committee is seized with that task and is meeting even this afternoon at 6 p.m. to deal with the water challenges confronting our economy. As for the social sector, I suspect some of the colleagues who spoke here have not bothered to read either the speech or the budget review. A closer look at the budget review will show that insofar as doctors are concerned, we're making available 26 billion rand over the MTR. It's in the budget. It's in the budget. As for education, we are making more than 20 billion as well to deal with the challenges in education, including early childhood development. We're also providing education with another 9 billion to deal with the challenges of employment in that regard. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to deal in detail with the illicit economy. I suspect tomorrow is going to be an important subject as well, because one of the honorable members has posed a question on the illicit economy, and we'll discuss that in detail tomorrow. I want to caution, I've been doing this caution around the Black economic empowerment. I think I've said in the past, and I must repeat it today, that Black economic empowerment is part of the transformation agenda enshrined in our Constitution. What we need to be doing is not an ideological attack on the BEE. It's not helpful. Because what you are going to get, if you are engaged in an ideological attack, you are going to get another ideological response. We accept that there are challenges with the Black economy, unintended consequences. Let me move that point. We have said to the colleagues, if you want to raise with us some of those unintended consequences, let's have a discussion, but don't launch an ideological attack on the BEE. And in that regard, we are going to respond. We have achieved what we have achieved today out of a long and bitter journey. What is that bitter journey? 2008, we have the global financial crisis, and all emerging economies recovered in 2010. In South Africa, we never recovered in 2010 precisely because of what is called state capture. It's recorded in books. Arising from that, we had what was called COVID-19. All of those combined, we had to save lives, and in the process, spend more money. All of that combined has led to an increase in the debt to GDP. We accepted that. But we have moved beyond that today, and we said in 2021, we will reach a peak in 25-26 and begin to decline. We have achieved that target. Together with that target, we've been able to achieve savings out of debt service cost. Out of the amount that is being presented today in the adjustment estimate, 4 billion of that is serving from debt service cost. We want to make these points to say this government quietly and slowly is beginning to transform this economy in the interest not of some anybody else, in the interest of poor South Africans. That's why more than 60% of this budget is focusing on those poor South Africans in their social services. That's what this budget is about. On the infrastructure front, we're also focusing on the social infrastructure. Chief among those is to begin to upgrade our hospitals. We mentioned 3 of them in the budget speech. Those hospitals like George Mkari, which will be upgraded in order to be able to improve the performance of those hospitals. So all in all, Madam Speaker, sithi abo babendlebe mabeve. Abo banendlebe mabeve. Because all of these things are a matter of record. Are a matter of record. Colleagues must spend some time reading what is useful so that we should engage in a more constructive way. Or in a more constructive way, if when colleagues read tons and tons of these documents at our table, in particular the budget speech and the budget review, if you read those documents, we'll be able to engage from an informed basis. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Order, honorable members. As we know, the passage of the fiscal framework and the budget are determined by the Money Bills and Related Matters Act of 2009. In the case of fiscal framework, Section 8 of the Act prescribes that the Standing Committee on Finance must consider the fiscal framework within certain parameters. Moreover, in terms of its report, Section 8, subsection 4 of the Act states that, I quote, "The report must include a clear statement accepting or amending the fiscal framework," close quote. I draw the attention of the House to the fact that the report of the Standing Committee on Finance also records the views of certain political parties opposed to the acceptance of the fiscal framework, and in their report, as they've done, I quote, they refer to those as minority reports. But in actual fact, in terms of our rules, 166 subsection 4, subsection A, these are actually the views that are included in the report, which reflects a different view from that of the majority. I just thought it was important for me to reflect on that so that members are aware. I now recognize the Chief Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the report be adopted.
Thank you. Are there objections to the adoption of the report? I note Honorable Mente and Honorable Mkwena Zondi. And Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you, Speaker. The EFF rejects the fiscal framework and we are calling for a division.
Honorable Mkwena Zondi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Us as the MK party, we reject and we also call for division. Thank you.
A division has already been called. I recognize because I thought you were coming with a different position. Honorable Masasi.
The UHC reject.
Thank you, honorable members. A division having been called, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes.